morning, everybody. My name is Jamie C, and I am so pumped to be here with you guys today. First and foremost, I would like to thank Behind the Chair for allowing me to be a guest on their Facebook, which is so cool. I am very pumped to announce that I will be on tour with Behind the Chair in LA with 10 other amazing artists. It's going to be May 1st at the Orpheum Theater. If you guys have purchased your tickets, that's awesome. I can't wait to see you there. It's going to be jam-packed full of education. And if you haven't, we have some really cool little things for you today. So first, Behind the Chair has been so gracious to offer 2 VIP tickets to On Tour, and they're going to be picking those 2 based off of people who are engaging with us and asking questions. And then the other cool thing is if you don't win, we still got other cool stuff for you. So you will be able to win basically 25% off and a free webinar, which is awesome. Once you buy your tickets today, you will get 25% off of your ticket price with the code JAMIE25. And then you will be getting the free webinar of my root smudge, multi-dimensional balayage, and all that fun stuff. And that will be all for you. So today, to get down to the dirty stuff, this is Rabina, everybody. This is my beautiful model, and she is dark. She is probably like a level 5, 6, and this old color here, you guys can see back here, we have some like chunky old highlights from a previous color, not done by me, but that's totally cool. Sorry. So she has a little corrective stuff that we're going to soften out, but our main goal today, as you can see here, like how much dark she actually has. We're going to be showing you guys how to brighten all of this up. We still want to give her, you know, a slightly rooted look. I like to call it like the halo drop. So imagine, you know, Victoria's Secret models with it like super bright and beautiful around the face. And then it kind of carries out down through here like she was spending a month in Hawaii. So there you go, Rabina. You want to spend a month in Hawaii? So we're going to get down to business. What we have here, I want to show you guys what I have is this huge, cute pineapple bowl full of balayage lightener. This is generally the consistency that I like to work with. It's kind of like creamy, whipped, beautiful stuff. And then here I have, oh, and just for inquiring minds, this is the Scruples with 40 volume, and I am using a bond protector in there, and it is B3. And also for inquiring minds, for why I'm using B3, is mainly because it doesn't dilute my processing time or the strength of my developer. So that is the one I go with. Yeah, go right ahead.
Can you remind viewers how they can win tickets?
Oh, for sure. If you go on to behindthechair.com, you will be able to /on tour. You will be able to type in Jamie25 and get 25% off of your on tour tickets. And you'll also be getting the webinar that I did if you missed it. You'll be getting that for free as a little add-on. And then right here is my low light that I'm going to kind of blur out some of her you know, lines of demarcation from an old chunky highlight. I'm going to be using, this is the Redken Shades EQ, and it is a level 7 NB, which is a neutral brown, and it's beautiful because it's their demi-permanent, so this is just going to soften that line of demarcation. But if we ever decide to shift her brightness in the future, we'll be able to do so easily because it's not a permanent. So that is why I use a demi-permanent for any correctives, because it just softens everything out really beautifully. And what I'm going to be using for my brush.
So we have a question from Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca.
She would like to know how many levels of lift is the lightener.
Oh, so what I can realistically achieve with this lightener is most likely, you know, 3 to 5 shades. With her at a level 6, I'm hoping to get it to maybe like a level 8 with her today. That's more realistic for a balayage lightener, any kind of clay-based. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. And also, if you look at Miss Beautiful Rabina here, you can see she's got a really beautiful olive complexion. So anything a little bit brighter than an 8 or 9 is going to look too artificial on her. And I really do love those like warmer, like caramel tones on her, just because that's going to just reflect really well with her complexion. So that's why I'm staying with a balayage lightener and not trying to go any further past that.
Lauren would like to know,
Hi, Lauren.
do you like the Scruples lightener better than Wello?
I'm going to compare the two. So they're both wonderful lighteners. I've used a ton of different lighteners before. My preference for Scruples is more just because it has like this light little tackiness to it. So we're able to get a lot more. It just lays on the surface easier. But in terms of the lift that you'll get with either one, they're comparable. So one doesn't really lift more than the other. Okay, so with Rubina, I'm going to start like right in the front area here in my sections. Start probably like right near the ear, right here. And I'm just going to section this off to get this out of my way. And then I'm going to start just with medium sections here. And the reason why I'm taking these kind of sections, if you guys kind of take a peek here, you can kind of see the depth-wise here. Perfect. Thank you, Ashley. So this is a really good section if you still want some dimension underneath and through here, because what this is this is going to essentially be your low light. So you'll be able to expect that, you know, it may look like a heavy application on the surface, but once you let that go, you're going to have this beautiful kind of like softness in between the transition area. And then you can kind of like really bump up the volume with like getting super bright down here, because this, you can easily saturate all of that. So I'm going to be using my 2-inch chip brush right here. It's my faves for right now. I love it. And I'm going to start with just a little bit on my glove like that.
And we have several viewers who are curious why you're using an actual paintbrush.
Oh, okay. So you can see here, actually, hold on one second. I'm going to show you guys something. Okay. So I want to show you how the difference between the two. So you actually want to go with on there. So you can see here, it's like just a traditional, you know, application brush, and all the bristles are really straight and harsh. So when I used to actually balayage with this, what would happen was I felt like I was working a lot harder to get a blur in this transition area here. And then when I switched over to this, these are natural bristles, and what happens when you use a natural bristle is you're using natural bristles on natural hair. It blurs 1,000 times easier. The only downside is it is disposable, but you can get maybe like 2, I would say I get about 3 to 5 uses out of them, and then I toss them away. So blurring wise, it's awesome.
Angela would like to know,
Hi, Angela.
do you section according to where she wears her part in her hair?
I always ask where they part their hair, and then if you want, you can ask them. You know, sometimes people flip and flop, but the way I paint a lot of times is I give universal brightness around the hairline, so you just want to make sure your sections aren't too big, because then you'll be able to have universal brightness any which way that she parts her hair. So I'm just going to move you around just a little bit, Romina. Thank you, love.
Allison would like to know, do you feel like Joycey Free Play, Wells, or Scruples has any stronger of a lift?
I would say any balayage lightener is anything that's on the market right now is going to give you realistically a highest, I would say 5 to 6, because you know it really all depends on the canvas that you're working on. It really depends on you know, if they're, you know, if you're working maybe on old permanent color, but I would say right now I've used the Joico, and I would say it's really great. It's wonderful. The textures all are very comparable. However, I would say right now one does not give me an overwhelming amount of lift over the other. So I'm just going based off of my preferred texture and consistency. So that's kind of why I'm using this one right now.
How do you know when to saturate the hair or surface paint the hair?
So I always surface paint in this is zone 1 right here, zone 2, and zone 3 is your ends right here. So zone 1, you always want this to be your transition area. So you want it to look a little bit more blurry, a little bit more organic, and then in through here, this is where you can start to saturate a little bit more. And I'll show you guys 2 different ways on how I saturate things. So if you're going to saturate things, you want to make sure that this, if you're going to like start to build your lightener up and through here, you want to make sure you don't have too thick of a section, because I don't know if any of you have done this before and saturated, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it looks beautiful while it's processing, and then you rinse it out and you have like this harsh line of demarcation right there. That's because either the section was too thick or you didn't blur the backside a little bit.
Can you remind our listeners and viewers which products you're using
and which
volume of developer you're using?
Right now I'm using the Scruples Balayage Lightener, and I'm using 40 volume with the Brazilian Bond Builder as my protectant. So one important thing you want to remember is, if you guys can take a look under here. So right here we have this is where we all surface painted. So you can see where I'm saturating and where I stop, where all of that is going to be just our low light color. So you can see here, now the top looks just as seamless as the bottom. And then I just lightly pull this up and then just kind of take my brush and softly lighten that. And if you guys are looking to get a little bit more of a brighter effect, you want to make sure you're taking thinner sections and saturating up just a little bit higher. That will give you a little bit more of a powerful look.
So Ashley would like to know, what's the difference between painting up to the base like you're doing versus the V pattern?
So the V pattern is going to give you much more dimension. So this is going to give her like a glow from root to end. And the V pattern is, this is balayage film, so everyone can see. I always use balayage film when I'm trying to achieve the most amount of lightness. And I just kind of insulate everything like so. The V pattern is going to give you more dimension, and my preferred way of painting isn't with V's, and the only reason I say that is because I think it ends up looking like a highlight. I like doing slants, however, because I think that adds more brightness around the hairline. Hopefully that answered your question, Ashley.
When overlapping on pre-lightened hair, would you use a lower volume?
I feel like clay-based lighteners never cause too much damage for me, and I'm using the Brazilian Bond Builder in there for extra protection. I am doing such a light layer on these blonder pieces that it won't cause anything. I mean, you do need to use your judgment too. A lot of people will go over previously lightened hair that's falling off. I would prefer not to do that because it's probably not the best thing to do. And you want to be really gentle. And what I'm using right now is almost the body of my brush. You can see I'm kind of just, I don't do this, I do this. And that not only applies faster, but it's more blurred and you have more control. So you can see here that I'm just overlapping just slightly to connect, and then I'm connecting a little bit around the hairline. And you can see I'm leaving out this extra blonde stuff right here, and then just connecting that darker area next to her existing highlight. And then I'm gonna go back in and saturate in through here.
Karen would like to know, do you section the same way for most of your clients or different ways?
I section differently all the time, depending on the look I'm going for. This is more of just like my go-to sectioning, just because I'm trying to correct a lot of things that are going on in her color right now. So this is kind of how I'm going through and doing it. But sectioning wise, I tend to do differently based on the effect that I'm going for.
Can you tell us, Debbie would like to know,
Hi, Deb.
How long does it take to apply and how long does it take to process?
Okay, I would say the majority of the times, if I'm doing a heavy balayage like I'm doing right now, I would say it would take me probably like 25 minutes. And it depends on the type of lightness that I'm achieving, or trying to achieve rather. I think I would say the most I've ever left someone was maybe like 40 minutes. And that's under gentle heat, but I'm consistently checking on them. And you can see how I'm just lightly coming up on top here.
Viviana would like to know, what's the difference between foils and the plastic in which you're using?
Okay, so balayage film is actually such a wonderful, it's such a wonderful thing to have on hand, because not only does it keep your moisture in, and it allows for you to be able to achieve a little bit more brightness, but it's super lightweight. You don't have to worry about, you know, things smudging in there. You don't have to worry about it. You know, it's almost like a window, so you can kind of see how everything's looking. One thing I just want to, actually I'm going to show them my glove here. So you can kind of see here how I just, very, very consistent on always checking how much product I have in my brush. You never want, you know, globs of product. It's easier to build color than it is to take it away. Thank you. And especially with these kind of thinner sections, it's really, really important to start very, very light so you don't like glop of color on top of there.
Can you remind our viewers what products you're using, and again, why you're using a paintbrush versus a regular brush?
Absolutely. Thank you for everyone who's joining thus far. What I've decided to use today on my beautiful model, Rabina, is a 40 volume clay-based lightener with scruples. And it is protected with the Brazilian Bond Builder. And the reason I use the Brazilian Bond Builder is because it doesn't dilute the intensity of my developer, and it doesn't and it doesn't take away from the intensity of you know, the intensity of my developer or the time processing.
We're gonna switch.
Oh, great! Go right ahead. Oh, you're looking good, Rabina. Oh, this is actually nice. Thank you.
Does that work out
Look
better?
at that. Oh, yeah. That looks real good. Perfect. Okay. Now what we're going to be doing next is you're going to continue. This is really, really important information right here. You can see like some like old splotchiness from this old color that she had. So once you get up to something like this, you want to make sure that you're sectioning this in half, because you don't want to have too much surface space. You have so much more control when you have two working areas.
Alexis would like to know,
Hi, Alexis.
are you twisting the hair to see where the light is reflecting?
Oh, twisting like this. I am probably twisting. I didn't realize I was twisting. Thank you, Alexis. I didn't realize I was. I'm not quite sure what she means by that, twisting the hair. I didn't even realize I was twisting. Okay, so now we're going to go to the money piece area. So I'm just going to scoot her over here. So you can see how I'm lightly building the color up here. And then I pull up. I'm pulling up in through here and just making sure I'm kind of scooping in all on the sides here. And that's going to get all those little baby hairs. And she's going to be able to, when she pulls her hair back or flip her hair in her part, she'll always have a good amount of brightness there. Another important trick is maintaining tension the entire time, trying not to let it lag a little bit. You want to pull as much, but you don't want to pull your client's head too far. But if Rabina had, you know, started to kind of fall, you know, towards me a little bit, I'd probably like, Rabina, resist the pull, honey. Resist the pull. And she would gladly, because I told her so. So you can see how I just keep kind of like, I lightly kind of pull these things together. So I'm working on one nice, beautiful canvas instead of things falling apart. And I always make sure when I'm doing it that the fingers I'm grabbing with do not have lightener on them. And then you just lightly pull them in together.
Can you just, again, highlight not saturating the hair fully and just doing it as a surface painting?
Sure. So if you're going to not saturate fully, what you're going to do is, if you're not saturating the ends, you hold it on the palm of your hand. Ash, I'm just going to have you kind of come down just a little bit. Perfect. And then you're going to lightly take your brush and you're just going to add product on it. And then when you lift it up, you don't have anything on there. Look at that. Beep, 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 beep. And nothing is saturated.
How long do you actually book clients for an appointment, and how far in between are their appointments?
Okay, perfect. That was a really good question. So with my guests, if it's a new client, which unfortunately I do not have right now, I would book 3 hours, because I mean, it really does depend on what kind of appointment they're looking for. We always like to go over goal hair. We like to go over, you know, what is going to be expected in their first session. And I always do leave a good amount of time for us to sit down and talk with each other first. Mainly because I just want to see how they see color. I want to see their goal pictures. I want to see if it's realistic, if it's going to look good on them. And then I would say for my existing clients, if it's just like a touch-up, I would say I would book maybe 2.5 hours for a full head of balayage. If it's just like a little touch-up, it's maybe 2 hours.
Olivia would like to know what works best to help blend harsh lines.
Okay, so blending harsh lines, that is probably a job for color melting. That's, yeah, for sure. You're gonna need some kind of coverage there. You can do it with balayage, but it's gonna be a full head and it's gonna have to be much thinner saturation, much thinner sections rather, and that's the best way that you're gonna be able to get you know, all of those lines covered. And a lot of times too, if you're working with like a corrective color, you know, I think it's really important for you to be totally transparent and honest with your guests about what they can realistically achieve. And if it's going to take a couple sessions, just tell them that. And I think it's, they're going to be able to be much happier in the long run.
How will you cover the hair in between the painted hair?
How will I cover it? So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using, once I see really harsh lines in through there, I have my low light right in through here. You can see this is the Redken Shades EQ 7NB. This is their demi line, and I'm using that because she had her hair colored previously, and they had done like some really harsh lines in through here, which I'll show you in a little bit. And it was, it's going to be harder to blur that out with just balayage, so that's why I mixed that, so we can get some really good coverage and blending and blurring.
So are you leaving out certain sections of the hair to do that?
In the back, once I'll show you guys how I'm doing it, I probably will blur like the top with the balayage lightener, low light rather, and then connect it with the balayage lightener. So you guys will be able to see that. So you guys kind of see how I'm like building the saturation up too. I start in the midway and then I slowly build my way up. And what this does, and you'll see, I'll start to kind of work up the foundation that I had already built. Instead of starting with so much product from the top down, you want to start from the middle and work your way up. That's going to be able to allow you to create much more lightness. A lot of people ask me like, oh, Jenny, how do you get so much brightness? And it's one of my tricks.
Do you always glaze in tone?
Yeah, it's like the icing on the cake for me. I can't really help it. It's just, even if it's a clear gloss or like a mask or something, it's just, to me, I think it just finishes the look off.
Why do you start in the front by their face instead of in the back or on the crown?
I will tell you why. I have designed my colors to be like ocean inspired, sea inspired, and you know, if you were to look at somebody who's been, you know, tinted by the sun and they've been in the sun forever, they're never overly saturated in the interior and on their crown. They're always brighter around the face because that's naturally how much we're always brighter around the face. So I always try to get as much brightness as I can around here, and then I tail down a little bit and tip out the ends. That way it reflects, it actually looks so much more natural that way.
Can you again remind, or for some of our new viewers, let them know why you are using a paintbrush and what products you're using?
Of course. Hi everybody that's visited. I am so excited that you're here. I'm using Scruples with 40 volume, and I have my bond protector of B3 in there. And I am using a paintbrush because with a natural, it's got a natural bristle. It blurs a lot easier, and I've tried so hard to get this kind of blurring with a normal application brush, which it's totally doable. And if you're rocking it out right now with a normal application brush, continue to do so. I just felt like this was like the biggest time saver for me. I'm able to apply lightener so much faster and so much more seamless than I would with other things that I've used.
What is the consistency of your product? And also, how do you avoid the end result from looking splotchy?
Okay, so splotchiness is a lot of different things. I mean, it could be, you know, how hard you're pressing. I'm a very gentle painter, and that is all because I want to keep everything on the surface. So Ash, I actually want you to zoom in here. I want to show them the consistency of the product that I'm using. So you can see here, it's almost like whipped frosting. And then this one by Scribbles has a little bit of like an extra tackiness to it, so it lays on the surface really nicely. I would say lift-wise, it's very comparable to everything else that's out there right now. So, you know, on average with any balayage lightener, if you're not adding any, you know, some people will add, let's say like a 9+ lightener in there, and it's totally fine if you do that for a little extra lightness. But if you are using just a clay-based lightener in general, you'll most likely get about 3 to 5 shades of lightness. If you are, I think it's really important for anyone who's doing open air balayage, you're not going to get a ton of lift. That's just kind of first and foremost. That is why I insulate everything and use a little bit of heat. That's how I get things so bright.
Viewers would like to know where you purchase these brushes.
Okay, Home Depot, Lowe's. Aren't I just so fancy, guys? So fancy.
And also, they would like to know, how much does this process cost?
Well, everyone charges differently. So it depends on what town you're in. It depends on, you know, where you are in your career. It depends, you just have to be comparable to things that are around you as well, but also, you know, charge what you're worth. So it depends. I mean, it probably could range anywhere between, I know some salons charge maybe $120 for a balayage, and there's other ones that charge, you know, like $500. So it really depends on where you're at. I think it's just important to know, you know, always charge what you're worth. Don't be scared. It's a really important thing to know.
Amanda would like to know, do you
Amanda.
have to bump the developer using B3?
No. No, I do not. Okay, so.
Nicole would like to know if you're able to show sectioning again.
Sure.
Are you working in 3 quadrants?
I am working, I'll show you on the other side. Was that Amanda?
Nope, that was Nicole.
Nicole, I'll show you my sectioning once I get to the other side, sweetheart. I got you, girl.
And if you can also just remind why you're painting just the surface and not saturating?
Surely. I do not like to overly saturate everything all the way through. I don't feel like it's the best option for something if you want dimension. If you're using really thin sections, it's like totally fine because, you're just not going to get a lot of dimension. So the way I have done this is, as you can see, like I'm going to be able to use all of this as my low light, which is creating a lot more dimension. And then in through here, I will, right about in zone 2 to zone 3, I'm going to be able to create a lot more saturation and brightness, and that gives like that, beachy look.
And Sue would like to know, why are you starting with 40 volume when it's already lifting before you get to the other side?
So that's a beautiful question. So I'm a pretty quick painter, so I'm showing it a little bit slower than you guys right now, just so you can see. But the reason I use 40 here is because then I'm going to bump up to the higher and higher, which is by Trionics, and then that is a 50 to 80 with the Brazilian Bond Builder. Scoop.
Amy would like to know, when a client wants to change their base color, how do you do so when you want to also balayage?
Balayage. Oh my God, Molly, you're so cute.
Without creating bands of warmth.
Okay, well, that is a huge, actually, the webinar I did went over tips on how to avoid warmth when you're doing a root color, and I'll give a little tip away, but it's just you don't want to overly saturate one over the other. That's going to avoid that warmth, but it also depends on what base color you're working on. If you're working off of a level, 3 or 4, balayage. You're so cute. I love it.
Rebecca would like to know, how does balayage?
Bailey, you can do it. Balayage.
How does balayage film compare to saran wrap?
It's the same thing. Just sounds fancier. Color companies want you to say that.
Would you ever use foils to do this?
If they come up with a lightweight foil, then for sure.
Melissa wants to know, are you saturating the ends or just painting the underneath very lightly?
I am saturating a little bit, and then you can actually see, if you go in really close, you can see that I'm not fully saturating all of that. I do the top, I lightly saturate that, and then I can just blend it back just a little bit in through here. You can see that really well.
Do you use heat for processing?
I do. I use the heat lamps.
Rebecca would like to know, why did you choose to start right where the old highlight was?
Because I'm trying to blur it out. Sorry. Trying to blur out that line a little bit.
Rod and Cynthia would like to know, if you're covering gray at the root, do you do that first?
Yes, I do.
How long is processing time?
For her, maybe about half an hour, maybe. I'm only really trying to, you can see like this piece right here, I'm leaving out purposefully because it's, for whatever reason, really bright right there. So I'm leaving that out, working around it.
Mary would like to know if you can repeat the developer again.
Sure. It's the, for the front or the back? Mary. Sorry. I'm using 40 in the front, and then for the back, I'm going to be using the Trionics. It's a, it's called Higher and Higher, and it is a 50 to 80 developer, 80%.
Are you afraid of breakage and damage when using 40 through 80 developer?
Nay.
How do you avoid this?
You have to know your client's hair. That's a lot of it. I know the strength of her hair. I know what I'm working on. I know the integrity of the canvas I'm working on. If you have fine, brittle hair, you don't use 40. If you have thick, coarse hair and it's in the orange phase, Andrew using a clay-based lightener, which is 1,000 times more gentle than any other kind of like abrasive, like 7+ lightener, I would never use 40. Like in my foils, I use like 20 because I'm a fraidy cat when it comes to abrasive lightener. Not with balayage lightener though.
So Lauren says that we only have 40 volume highest used peroxide in England.
Okay.
So what would be a solution for the back of the hair?
Okay, so you're going to want to start with like a 30 volume in the front. Make sure you're insulating everything, and then in the back you can bump up to 40 and then just let it sit a little bit longer.
Lauren would like to know, what if you don't have heat lamps? Any other options for heat?
You can use a little bit of like you can blow dry like lightly, especially when it's insulated. You just kind of lightly heat it up and then let it sit. Just let it sit. You just have to add a little bit more time to your processing time. Beautiful.
Do you have any suggestions for toners?
Ooh, well, that depends on what you're working on. Some of my favorites right now are 7NB, clearly, by Redken Shades EQ. I love that. One of my favorites for brunettes is the 7/7-1 in the Color Touch, which is the Demi. It's beautiful for brunettes, especially if you add it with the 7/7-3. That's like a warm caramel color. It's beautiful on brunettes. And one of my favorite for blondes is the 9N, 9V, and 9RB by Redken Shades, all equal parts. And that actually creates a really beautiful, like, rosy champagne color. Pew. All right, we're going to go to the other side. I'm going to plop you this way. Hi, Lydia.
And
Come
Bailey,
on over.
sorry. Bailey would like to know, what is her natural level?
She's about a 6, I would say. Teetering on a 5.
Kimberly would like to know, does the clay lightener dry without heat?
Yes, it sure does. And then once it dries, you're not getting anything after.
Gabby would like to know, do you ever fully saturate the hair, like if someone is looking to be super light on the top or bottom?
Yes, but my sections have to be very thin if I'm going to do that.
Can the heat lamps be damaging? How long are clients exposed, and why do you use those?
Okay, so I would say I use the most gentle one. I don't blaze them with heat. I think it's, for me, my thought process is like kind of like a crock pot. Low and slow is the way to go. It's true. You don't blaze them with heat, you know. I think that's a terrible route to go. So think of your hair as food, and you're good.
Do you stay further from the root the higher you go?
The higher I go, rephrase that question? I'm confused. Also, another tip for you guys, in terms of trying to achieve a lot of brightness, if you see a lot of strands through the hair, so Ash, I'm going to have you come on up just a little bit. Balayage lighter all over my phone. You can see here, this is the transition area. So what's going to happen in this area right here, you can still see her hair through this application. So what's going to happen is this is not going to get as much lift as something that looks like that. And that's kind of the process you want for gradient color. You want something that's a little softer here and more transitioned and brighter through here. What I always say is the more product you see, the brighter it will be. But just make sure that you're applying lightly and building onto the color instead of putting a ton of product on your brush and then going up. You're not going to get as much control as if you start slow and build your way up.
Do you color mount after balayage?
Oh, Mal, balayage. Balayage, you got it.
It doesn't look like it would sound like that.
It doesn't. It's French, whatever. Balayage. So what was the question again? Would I use a color melt after this?
Yeah.
Usually the color melt for me is I start first and then I do a lot of like wide plank panels afterwards. And then in through here, you can see she's got like a little line of demarcation here. And I'm just gonna go in and softly make sure I don't have a ton of product on my brush. And then I'm gonna come in here and I'm just gonna lightly feather that up and just connect the two together. And these are like really, for whatever reason, these little gentle baby hairs right here, I can tell integrity wise would not be able to handle it. So I'm gonna leave those out and then just lightly tip out the ends here. So I'm not going to go, and there's just from whatever her previous color was, they left some areas where like in foils I can tell, and the integrity here is not going to be able to handle the 40, so I connected here and then tipped out the bottoms there. So we're going to just try our goal colors to get that there.
Amy would like to know, if you're covering gray with a base color, do you apply the base color and then color melt while that's processing, or do you do them in two separate steps since it's not a demi?
Sometimes what I'll do is I will have a root color here. I'll just touch the grays, and then I'll go back and I'll comb it in a little bit, and then I'll go back in with a demi in like zone 2, and then be able to soften it out that way. Hopefully that answered your question.
Can you remind our viewers how you're parting and sectioning the hair?
Sure. So the section starts like right behind her ear here, so you can see right there. And then I'm going in and I'm taking sections, you can see right there. Beep, boop, beep, boop. They're about 1.5 inches, I'd say, thick. And I love doing 1.5 inches thick because I get so much more dimension in my colors than I would as the thicker your section is, the darker your result is going to be, because you're going to have more built-in low light underneath.
Do you ever foil and balayage at the same time?
All the time.
Yeah, she said it right.
You did it! I didn't even notice. You did it. Wow, good job.
It was a little softer on your ear that time.
I was like, oh, I didn't even notice it. It was really good. Okay. So have you guys checked out the Behind the Chair University yet? Just asking my viewers if they have yet. There's a ton of really cool education on there for you all. All of my tutorials are up there as well. And I'm going to announce that I'm pretty sure they're up there now, but I have 4 brand new tutorials that are up there. We have a ton of, I think we did a lot actually. I did like a zigzag foliage technique on there, and I did root smudging with highlights. I did a whole bunch of other ones, multi-dimensional balayage. So those are all up there for you guys now. And all 4, I believe, are $99 or $95 actually.
Let viewers know a little bit more about the wrap and
Sure.
what brand it is. And
Absolutely. I'm using balayage film. It is pretty much the same as saran wrap. And the reason I love using this is mainly because it is allowing me to keep all the moisture inside of my balayage lightener, which allows it to process a lot brighter. And this one is by Product Club. It's perforated, so you can kind of rip right from the roll. I'll show you guys actually. Come on into my cart. Here we go. This one is this one right here. And then when you pull it out, it has like these perforated, there's one right there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like a perforated edge. And so you can customize how long you need it to be. And then I just keep that right in my trolley.
Lindsay would like to know, what is your mixing ratio for the lightener? Okay,
so I would say for this this lightener, I do a little less than 1 ounce to 1 leveled scoop. Do keep in mind though, with the, I wish I could show you guys right now and I don't have it on me because it's in the break room, but the scoop of, the scooper of the Scruples lightener is like huge. So you just want to mix it until you have like a creamier consistency, nothing too wet. If it's too wet, it's going to be diluted and then you're not going to be able to get as much lift. So that's, if you can see right there, that's my consistency. It's creamy, it's not too stiff, but this is just my preferred. I get a lot of, I'm able to move the product really freely and I don't have to worry about it like stiffening up too much. And with this kind of consistency that I have with this product, it has like a little extra tackiness to it. So it really does lay right on the surface. But most importantly, you can see with my brushwork, I'm very, very gentle. And I'm using the body of the brush, which is the side of the brush. You can even see how like that's starting to wipe in one direction. One Direction, the band. That's all I thought of when I said that. Started singing One Direction.
How many levels of lift is the lightener?
So any kind of, so I think this one is up to 6 levels of lightness. I do truly believe, though, that is all dependent on your saturation. There's so many factors with balayage, and that's, you know, that can be really frustrating for anybody who's just starting out. But I think a lot of times we're a little scared, and, you know, everyone does balayage different, and it's got pros and cons to that as well, because the cool part about everybody doing things differently is because that's the artistry behind it, but also it can be frustrating if you're just starting to learn. But balayage is an art, and I think that you need to find what works best for you. I see people do a lot more precision balayage, which to me is like just fascinating to watch. However, it's not my preferred way of painting. I like really super blended gradient color, and that's just the way I like to paint. But you can modify the way you paint and just add things to your arsenal, and at the end of the day, the more knowledge that you have, the better. And I applaud any of you who came out here today to watch and to learn. So kudos to you.
For some new viewers, can you let them know again what product you're using?
Sure, new viewers. Hi, new viewers. I'm using Scruples and my paintbrush. I'm using Scruples with 40 volume and a bond builder in there.
Where can they purchase these lighteners?
I believe Scruples, you have to go onto their website, and I think that you can find the distributors near you. I hope that was a good answer. I get mine through a distributor. I'm in the East Coast.
Is clay lightener always best, or could you use any kind?
Okay. I have tried to paint with paint this way, like a gradient way, with other kind of say like, let's just say like a blonde or like by Wella or any kind of like traditional foiling lightener. I would say that is not going to give you the kind of glideability that you would get with a clay-based lightener. Clay-based lighteners are actually meant for freehand painting, whereas other ones that are meant for foils are exactly for that, for foils. So I do a lot of foliage. If I'm trying to achieve a really bright, saturated blonde on a brunette, like a level 6, I would probably do a foliage with a traditional lightener. However, if I'm trying to create a really sun-kissed, beautiful look, I'm not going to use another kind of paint.
Do you have any recommendations or suggestions for painters with a heavy hand?
practice, practice, practice. Practice putting a little bit on your glove at a time. See right there. And and I actually want to show you how I do it. Come on over, Ash. I'm going to show you. So I always have a comb in there. This one's very messy, so that's because I've been dipping with it. But when you have a heavy hand, try to modify how much you take out at a time and put it on your glove and just work with that small amount of product at a time. And what I do is I just slowly wipe it off, and this is how my product always should look on. Nothing is dripping, nothing is clumpy. It's very, very clean, and it's even on both sides. That is going to help you, and just make it just make it part of how you paint. Just be very consistent with checking how much is on your brush. You know that you're very, lightly put. The brush does a lot of work for you, so you don't really need to like go really heavy. Just lightly add it on there, and then work your way up. And keep your tension at all times throughout while you're painting one section. And just lightly pull in the side so everything stays cohesive. And just slowly work your way up. I'm very, very, very gentle right now. And you can see even now, I kind of go like this first, and then I tip my brush up, and I just lightly feather these areas together. That is going to create, you can see already right now, there's no way that is going to be splotchy. It's just super, super gradient. And then I go in here and I pull a little more taut, and I just blur that all out.
Do you ever back home any of your balayage clients?
Absolutely. I don't just paint this way. I paint a ton of different ways. This is just my preferred way, especially like when people are trying to learn how to do balayage for the first time, getting used to, the thickness of your section and what you can expect from that, how to get, your brushwork down and your consistency of your product, and, if you saturate all the way through, what you can expect from that. If you just do the surface, what you can expect from that. It all depends on what your guest is looking for. If you want something that is much more of a powerful look and you want a lot more brightness, you're probably going to lean more towards a foliage. That's going to give you a lot more control and brightness with warmth. Now, if you're only lightening, let's say realistic expectation for a level 6 here is probably a level 8. That's probably what I can expect from that. So if a guest wants a higher than a level 8, you probably wouldn't do this. You would go more into your arsenal, and you would pick the type of technique that's going to work best for them. A lot of times people are just like, I can't get this with this, and I can't. There's ways around it. Foliage is meant to look like a painted-in highlight. So that way, you can add that to your arsenal. I actually have a foliage tutorial on BTCU that just launched today. I'm so excited about.
Can you actually give your social media? What is your Instagram handle?
Pretty Little Ombre. And I'm going to actually tell you guys how, I'm such a nerd, how that actually came. Pretty Little Ombre, how I came up with that name was, if anyone's watched the show Pretty Little Liars.
Yep. We do.
I'm sadly in love with Lucy Hale, and yeah, so Pretty Little Liars, and at the time I was just obsessed with doing ombres. So that's how that name came to play.
Justin would like to know, what do you suggest we do for clients who have used black box color and want their hair lighter in one session?
Okay, so black box color. Oh God. And want what?
To be lighter.
And they want to be lighter.
He said, yes, I know, impossible.
Well, Justin, there you go.
How would you actually talk to them?
Okay, there's a whole science behind how to talk to somebody. First and foremost, Justin, the most important thing you can do with your guest is to, Justin, hold on one second. I want to show people how I'm doing this back here, because it's a whole new area. So I'm taking some areas back here. This is going to be, they're actually on a diagonal right now. You can do horizontal. I don't know why you can. It's not a big deal. But you can see some old highlights here that we're trying to blur out. And I'm going to section this into 2 areas here, and then I'm going to end up with 4 painting panels. And I'm going to use, these are probably about 2 inches thick. And the reason why I go thicker in the back is, let's go back to visualize yourself, on the beach. You got, where's the sun hitting your hair? It's never here. So, you do not want to use this kind of technique on somebody who just wants to be brighter everywhere. This is for a technique who somebody wants to replicate sun-kissed hair. So you're never super saturated brightness-wise here. So we're going to focus on tipping the bottoms out a little bit more. So you don't want to have, the thicker section means the more neutral the tone ends up being. So you're going to end up with a much more sun-kissed look than you would on these thinner sections here. And the reason why these pieces are thinner here is because we want them to be a lot brighter, because that's where the sun hits. Oh, Justin. Back to you, honey. I didn't forget. So what you're going to do is you're going to sit down face to face. You're not going to talk with your guests through the mirror. And you are going to talk to them about realistic expectations, how you care about the integrity of their hair, how you want, you want them to have really beautiful hair. You're going to look at, what I have done in the past, actually, I've actually knew what my guest's skin tone was before they came in. Like a lot of people, will send pictures in and whatnot, and I'll find a celebrity that has their skin tone and, maybe what would be realistic. So like, let's say Kim Kardashian, who has really dark hair. She used to have like these chocolatey tones in her hair, and I would always pick up that picture and I would sit down and be like, oh my God, you have to come see this picture. This is gonna look so beautiful on you. This is so what we can achieve in one session. And then I'd go ahead and do that look. And they would be so excited because I was excited. And I'd be like, okay, and then next time, this is the celebrity inspiration that you can look at, and we can look like this next time. And get them, the more excited you get them, the better. Right, Rabina?
Yes.
Elizabeth would like to know, does clay lightener require higher volume development?
I would say it depends on how bright you want to go. If you're going to be doing like a super neutral, like sun-kissed look, you're going to want to use a 20 volume. 10 volume is probably going to be way too gentle, but for someone who is just kind of like tiptoeing into the balayage world and you want a little bit of something, that's probably something you'd use on them. Now, Rabina and I are trying to get a little bit brighter and sassier for summer, so we're using higher. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, once I'm done with my 40, I'm going to work my way up to a higher volume, and we're going to tip out our ends with that too. And when you're using these back pieces, you want to, I keep these just slightly elevated. They're not out this way. This way, when you hold them out slightly elevated, you get a lot more control than you would as if you were like painting down here like this or out this way. You get a lot more natural tension that way.
Will you shampoo the front before the back?
Absolutely not. If it was foils, maybe, but no, because we want her to be as bright as possible in the front. And then we are going to, like the end goal is for her to look much more natural in the back areas than the front. And that's how sun-kissed color looks. You know what I mean, Jelly Bean? I'm like so distracted by there's a huge glob of balayage right here on my face.
There is a lot.
Yeah, that's what happens.
McKenna would like to know, what do you use to thicken the shade CQ?
I actually there's actually a thickener in, it's like a color thickener by Redken.
Drops.
Oh yeah, they're drops. Thanks.
Little droplets.
Little droplets. And they are available wherever they sell Redken. So.
Ashley would like to know, what's the highest volume you go? 30 or 40, or is there higher?
So what I'm using back here, I started with was 40, and then there is it's a 50 to 80 volume by Trionics, and then that is going to give you a little bit more lift. And the only reason I'm going to use that once I run out of my 40 is because that's actually, I probably wouldn't have to use it because I'm a very quick painter. However, sometimes if you're doing like a heavy balayage, you want to make sure you're bumping up your volumes. So somebody who doesn't have, the ability to get Trionics, maybe you would want to use 30 in the front and then bump it up to 40 in the back.
Will you paint every piece of hair?
I am planning on doing a little bit of, for a heavy balayage, I actually want to try to paint as much as possible, but do keep in mind that we are going to be doing, you have all this built-in low light action stuff here, so, and that means, all this is your built-in low light, everything underneath, so.
Haley would like to know, what is your favorite at-home care product for your clients to use to take care of this look?
something that they get in the salon from you, or something?
I think she's asking what products would you use to take care of this hair, like maintain it.
Okay, my favorites? Oh boy, where do I begin? Okay, I would say my favorite, okay, so for her, I would, because she's gonna pull warmer, which we know, I would say maybe like a purple shampoo. We have the Alchemic here by Davines, and then we also have the IGK, which is a lighter, it's more of like a lilac-y, but it's like a daily purple. Fanola, I've heard, is amazing for people who want a lot more powerful treatments at home. And any kind of hydrating type of stuff would be great. Okay, so now I'm gonna see, you can see here, there's these old chunky highlights right here. What I'm doing is I'm just taking my low light color right in where that meets and leaving that out. And that's just gonna blur out those old highlights.
We have a lot of inquiries about where you're located.
Oh girl, okay, sorry, I'm so weird. Okay, I am located in Connecticut, the lovely state of Connecticut, in Cheshire. I currently am not accepting new guests, but I have a wonderful staff of girls who are, so if anyone's interested in getting their hairs painted and meeting me, that's awesome. Where is everyone else located?
Everywhere.
Everywhere? Where is everyone from?
I have to go back. I mean, I've seen Portland, I've seen LA, I've seen Scotland,
so cool.
England, I saw Saudi, I've seen some Florida.
Florida. Where in Florida are you, if she's still here?
Anyone would like to shout out where they're from, I can certainly mention some of those
I'd
locations.
love to know where in Florida that you are.
Oregon, Western Mass, Tulsa,
Oh,
Oklahoma.
cool. So cool to see where everyone's at. So you can see here all those old chunky highlights. What I'm doing with those is I'm pulling those out because I'm going to blur those with my low light color. And so right now I'm doing a little bit of the corrective stuff happening because she had some old chunky highlights that I'm trying to soften up a little bit.
We have some Naples, Florida, Merritt Island, Florida, Cocoa Beach,
Is Naples,
Florida.
okay, so I used to go to Vero Beach, Florida. Is there anyone near Vero Beach? It's one of my places I used to go growing up, actually.
We have the United Kingdom checked in.
Oh,
Louisiana,
so cool.
New York.
Where in New York?
West Tennessee. New York, Clifton Park, New York.
Clifton Park.
Santa Fe, New Mexico. St. Cloud, Florida, near Orlando.
Cool. Okay, I know where Orlando is, but that's awesome. All right, so you guys can see here, this is like an old chunky highlight. You see that beautiful stuff there? What I'm going to be doing is taking my low light color and I'm going to just softly blur that out and making sure that I'm saturating that all the way through. It's a little bit of a thicker section. And I'm just taking that and blurring that in just about like an inch down from the line of demarcation. And then comb it in a little bit, and then this is what we're going to paint with right here.
We have Minnesota, Tucson, Arizona, Paris, Portland,
Paris?
Oregon,
That's so cool.
Long Island, Salt Lake City, Springfield, Pennsylvania.
So cool.
People from all over.
Who's going to Austin, Texas for the One Shot Awards? That place, oh my God. Whoever has not gone last year needs to go. It's so much fun. Sorry, don't mean to be yelling at you, but so much fun.
Would you wear the whole head if necessary?
Absolutely. Her front actually wasn't that bad, so I went in and I'm sorry, my cart's in the way. Sorry about that.
Can we shift this way a little?
Sure. Go ahead, Ravina. We're sliding on down. Perfect. Okay, you're going to probably pop on over that way so I can get this side. Perfect. Thanks, guys. My team killing it over here. All right, so now you can see here when I comb this down, we got all of these little chunky doodles in here. We're going to comb those out, and now you can see we have a little bit more of an even canvas to work with. So I think that probably is like a little bit too thick to work with. So I'm going to subdivide it just a little bit, and then we're going to work on this. And I do want to tell you guys that with this paintbrush, you are able to create these NWs and all those fun things with these. So, and it's actually really beautiful and seamless. So I'll show you guys how to do one of those as well.
What is the low light color that you're using? Is it demi or 7?
I'm using a demi-permanent Redken Shade CQ, the 7NB, and that's just to blur her mid-shaft a little bit.
Amy would like to know, what do you recommend for someone with naturally dark, very curly, thick, long, mixed African native hair?
Holy cow!
I want to do something lighter and do something fun for the summer.
I would get someone who can kill out like a cool foliage and get you like chocolatey caramel tones. Like that would be beautiful. Look at that. Woo! So what do you guys feel like right now is one of your struggles with balayage?
Right before we go into that, can you discuss your halo drop and money shot? What is that?
So a halo drop is just, so what you're going to do is it's almost like, think of like the Victoria's Secret models, how they have like that beautiful money piece, and then it kind of just like slowly drops down, almost like a halo. Like if you were to take a halo and drop it on your head, that's where all the depth lives. And then the rest is all sun-kissed and beautiful and bright. So you pretty much, it's kind of a whole bunch of slants that I create to get that look. And then for the money piece, oh gosh, there's like a whole bunch of different ways that you can do it, but I generally like to create it in a slant way. So you're able to get a lot more brightness more towards the front, and then you slant it back away from their face. That way you are able to use light and depth as like almost like an optical illusion. So even if you were to get, so even if you were to not get the front as bright, it has neighboring by depth, so it looks brighter than it actually is. So that's always a fun little trick.
What do you do if they want a root touch-up as well?
You do the root touch-up first. Make sure that you're only touching the gray areas and or whatever color that you're working on, and then make sure you're not overlapping a lot of the balayage lightener with the root color, because you're gonna get some wonderful oranginess with that.
Have you ever had to tell a client that you can't paint their hair because it's too damaged?
Absolutely. I'm very honest with my clients. I think I don't try to be the hero. I try to tell them what's realistic, what's going to look good on them. And I mean, I'm here, I'm not a magician, and I think a lot of the times, like, people come in and they bring in these overly filtered, Pinterest photos of, a makeup artist, and they don't wear makeup, and their hair isn't even that color. It's not, and they're more drawn to a beautifully aesthetic photo, like everything aesthetically is pleasing, and it's not actually what's going to look good on them. So instead of saying like, absolutely, yes, let's do it, sit down, talk about elements that you like about the color, and then how you can pull some of those elements that are going to fit their lifestyle and their complexion instead.
So some feedback for you for the question that asked about things that they struggle with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some
Loving to hear that.
Blending,
Okay.
Saturation and brassy tones.
Yes.
Knowing which sections to take.
Okay.
Spots underneath, bleeding from the lightener.
Okay. So I would suggest, is anyone using a paintbrush currently to paint hair? Because I think that is a huge thing that I felt was like, Christina, wouldn't you say? Yeah. The paintbrush is like a huge game changer. Huge game changer. So that's Christina back there. And I think it's helps with blurring so much better, being light-handed, being aware of how much product you have on your brush, and making sure you're really just hitting the surface, because that's what balayage is. It's hitting the surface of the hair. Hair painting is saturating all the way through. So balayage is really just the surface, lightly saturating the ends. So, I think that's a huge thing. And spots underneath, that's probably because either your tension wasn't even throughout the application, you were too heavy-handed in pressing, or like a lot of people will do this, and then it'll saturate all the way through, like that. And then, you might get something underneath. So you want to make sure that you're very gentle, you're light-handed, and you'll be able to have a little more success that way.
Yeah, some people are afraid that the section laying on top of the hair is going to bleed through.
Of course. That's why I always have, well, if you look at my sections too, there's so much negative space under here that nothing's really going to melt on into anything else. So they just lay. So what you want to know is that I use this all here as a buffer, and not only does it help get me brighter, but it also helps me keep everything seamless and beautiful and not having to sit on top of each other.
We do have a couple new viewers, so can you remind
them
about your paintbrush?
Surely, my paintbrush, this little doodle right here, hello. My paintbrush is from any hardware store, art craft store. I started using this a couple years ago, and it's been like the biggest game changer in balayage for me. I've used traditional application brushes, and they are, for me, those kind of application brushes are beautiful for like precision work, but this actually saves me 1,000 times more. It's also helpful to apply more at once. To do larger sections, you can do it with smaller sections. They do last only about, I would say, 3 to 5 uses.
What website can they go to refer to tutorials?
Sure.
Like the foliage.
So all of my tutorials live on Behind the Chair. Oh my God, sorry, Behind the Chair. BTCU, Behind the Chair University. So those are all there, and I have 4 new ones up there for you guys. If you want to take a gander, they're all up there now.
And we do have a lot of heavy-handed painters.
I know.
So they would like some more tips or techniques on how they can control that.
Sure. So that's totally normal. I get it. What you're going to do is I'm going to show you guys again how to do this. You're going to look into the bowl here. See how I have a comb in here. I take just a little bit out and I put that right on my glove. And that's all I'm working with in that section. You're going to take your brush and you're going to just lightly go back and forth. And you always want to make sure that's how your brush looks. You don't have a ton of products. And just make it part of your routine when you're painting to only have that much on your brush and then build color from there. If you need to add more, add more. But it's heavy-handedness is going to cause a lot of bleeding, splotchiness, and unevenness. I know probably people who have balayage before have gotten almost like a marbleization in your application, and that is from uneven saturation. So, if you have an area that looks lighter or darker, that's because, you've pushed maybe too far through or your saturation wasn't even. So you can see as I'm doing this, I'm building from the midway and working my way up. So you can see here, I'm gonna start to build more product here, and then in through here is gonna be all really super blurry and seamless. And then once I start working, once I'm happy with this, then I move down. So you can see all this is not even painted yet. And then I'm going to take my product, I'm still gonna work in the mids and pull that down. And I'm almost going over all of this stuff again to make sure I'm pulling everything down, everything is really seamless, because what that's gonna do is that's gonna create a really beautiful canvas for you and to not have any marbleization or splotchiness.
Will your sections get thinner as you move higher up?
Depends the look. For her, probably not. They're probably going to stay pretty cohesive. And the reason I'm doing that on her is mainly because I want everything to be the same brightness from the back of her head up. That is what I'm trying to create on her today. If you wanted thinner sections, you just know that that's going to create a brighter look for you because you have less of that built-in low light. And you can set with thinner sections, you can saturate more because you're not going to get that harsh line of demarcation with your saturation.
Do you like to tease the hair for a better blend?
No.
If not, then why do you tease?
A lot of people tease because it is like a buffer. It helps you blend really easily. It's super easy, but with this, I don't feel like I need teasing. It's just always seamless. Probably because of, once you master your brushwork and master your saturation, it just ends up working really well.
Can we remind them what type of brush and products you're using?
Absolutely. I am using the 2-inch chip brush from any hardware store, any art store, and then the scruples with B3 and 40. B3 is a Brazilian bond builder that is going to not take any intensity away from my processing, and it's also not going to hinder the time processing. I don't need to leave it longer.
How do you clean and care for your brushes, and when do you know it's time to get rid of them?
Okay, so I rinse them thoroughly, sometimes just under really hot water, and then I dry them and leave them out. I never leave them in the bleach. That's going to disintegrate it faster. And then I know it's time to get rid of them because these are natural bristle brushes. It's almost like if you were to over-process natural hair, it gets gummy. So once I get to that point, then I know it's time to retire them.
Jennifer would like to know, why are you not using the root color on every section?
I'm only using that color to blur out these old highlights that she has. She had gone and gotten her hair done, and they had done some like really chunky foiling in a foil balayage kind of thing, and I want that line gone. So I'm just finding those brighter pieces. You can back up a little bit. You can see how there's dark here, and this light here. So I want to blur this line down because I don't want it that saturated up top. Hopefully that answers your question.
Do you ever use a blur brush, or would you recommend that for someone who isn't good at this technique yet?
Oh, yeah. You also, you can use like a dry brush too. So like get your application and then use like this brush and then go in and just blur out this with a dry brush that doesn't have any product on it.
Will you show the finished product?
So afterwards, what we're going to do is we are going to let her process, and then we are going to glaze her, and then I'm going to take a video and a finished picture of everything for you guys. So I'll run my fingers through it. You can see the finished product. I'll show you guys the back where I blurred out all those pieces. And then behind the chair, we'll put that on their Facebook for you guys to see everything afterwards.
We have some suggestions to please show the toning part.
Please show the toning part. You guys would be here with me all day. So I will tell you probably what I'll do. Like, I'm not going to be doing any root smudging on her because she doesn't need it. So I will give you guys the formula of what I used, but what I'm probably going to do is probably just one color formula for her and put that all over on slightly damp hair and let that sit until I like the color. So that's just going to be the toning process. Very simple.
Joanna would like to know, when do you choose to use a clay lightener over a regular lightener?
So clay lighteners are built and designed to for balayage. So that being said, I'm going to get a lot more flexibility and movability with this product than I would with any other kind of lightener maybe that was just designed for foils. I don't have as much glidability as I would.
People would like to know how long you've been a hairdresser and how long you've been doing this technique for.
Okay, I have been a hairstylist for 11 years, and I have been doing this technique for three years. I remember, I'm going to tell you guys a little story because I think a lot of people felt this way. So I went to school and I was trained professionally with how to do foils, how to do root touch-ups, and then all of a sudden, I'm in the salon, and then all these ombre trends, Khloe Kardashian came out with it, and now we're all of a sudden like, okay, now ombre is the trend, so this is what you have to do, and this is what clients are going to be requesting. But I wasn't in cosmetology school anymore. I didn't have anyone to formally train me on how to create this look. So I remember going online and just looking like, oh my God, how am I going to be able to create these looks that everyone is requesting? So, we were like, I remember being there like teasing hair and being like, cool, this is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to do it. And I'm like, oh my God. And I went through so much trial and error. And as the trends shift and evolve, once you know your foundations, like you can really make this, it's not even when balayage, if ever, decides to kind of go way the dodo, you can use this technique, go way of the dodo. Like, you can use these kind of techniques just to create more of a classic color. classic color will never go out of style, you know, but it's really great to be able to add these things to your arsenal, you know, being able to, you know, master the teasing and master freehand painting. And I just think this is an ever-evolving industry, so it's incredibly important to keep up and never think that you know it all, because I'm the first one to tell you I don't know everything when it comes to hair. I mean, it would be silly for me to think that I do. So I'm continuously educating myself and evolving, and I'm always interested in wanting to go to classes, and when I teach, I end up always learning something from someone else too. And, you know, I'm like, oh my God, that's cool. How are you curling that way? Or how are you doing that? And it's just a really cool industry of artists being able to teach each other. So
We have a couple more requests for seeing the toning process.
of course. Okay. I'm like, well, I know we got to let it process first. So what was that?
Who are any of your inspirations?
Oh, Ankotran is my favorite. He's one of the most humble people I've ever met. And he's just a kind and gentle person. You can just tell he really cares. And I love his style. I love like how undone and piecey everything looks. Johnny Ramirez is, I love him. I love the style of color he creates. And they're just both just incredible inspirations. I'm hoping to get to one of their classes at some point. I'm trying to think of other people who are inspirational to me. I think those are the first people that pop into my mind, though, for sure. Are shoot. Who are inspirations to you guys? Who are people that you love their work, you like what they do, or their style?
Charlotte would like to know.
Oh, sure.
Why did you start in the front?
Sure. I'm empty. I gotta mix more, guys. Hold on one moment.
Going in the break room.
Oh, awesome. Cool. All right. Hi, guys. Welcome to my break room. Okay, so this is the Trionics Higher and Higher. This is the 50 to 80 volume. So when you open this too, you're going to see there's like, it almost has like, I'm going to try not to get this all over my hand, but you can see it's like purpley. So this actually does, and then this is the scruples that I use. So it actually does have a lot of, it changes the consistency of your product. So you may need a little bit more than you would if you were using a regular cream. It thickens it up a little bit more. So this is the scooper I was telling you about that I couldn't run in the back to show you. So I'm using about 3/4 of a scoop. And then
In the pineapple bowl.
in my pineapple bowl. Look at all my other bowls. Got a cactus bowl and everything. I actually, sometimes I just will scoop a little bit in there and then slowly mix with a comb until I like the consistency. I like to be able to monitor what's happening here. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, I definitely need more. And then I'll mix it and I'll be like, nope, I'm good. This stuff puffs up everywhere though. Oh.
What is your favorite color line?
Oh gosh, I have so many. Right now I'm primarily using Wella and Redken. As you can see, I have all of my Wella up here. And then my husband was so sweet to make me a whole rack over there for my Redken holders. So sweet.
So you don't use the scale?
A lot of the times I'm a by eye person because I like to slowly do it. And I mean, sometimes I'm mixing a full scoop, sometimes I'm mixing 2 scoops. So sometimes I use a scale, sometimes I don't. Here's my scale right here for proof. There's my proof right there. All right, so this is the consistency that I'm gonna use on Rabina. It's right here. So this actually creates a totally different consistency. It's not as creamy. It's a little like chunkier, but it definitely has a little bit more power to it. And then this is my B3 right here. And then I'm going to just scoop just a little bit in there just to protect it. So those are my three right there. And then this will just make it a little bit creamier. And we'll be able to rock and roll with that. Perfect. All right, let's do the damn thing.
Let's do it.
All right. Okay, we're back here. So these are the top areas. Like, I'm going to show you guys a couple different ways to create things as well. So, so I'm taking like little V sections here. It's just preferred. You don't have to. You can totally use horizontal. But I do want you guys to see like how you can almost see through these sections a little bit more than the other ones. See, these are thinner sections. So these are something that you can actually come up, maybe this one preferably. So if you can see through your whole section, you can saturate up a little bit higher. That's totally fine. As something like this that's a little bit thicker, you don't want to saturate up that high because you're going to get a strange line here. And these little pieces right back here, all those little bright pieces, I'm still going to keep blurring those out. So I'm going to pull those aside, and then I'm going to work on this section right here. And just make sure you're combing everything. All the strands are going in the same direction. You're going to get some super weird, inconsistent splotchiness if you don't have all the hair going in the same direction.
We have some questions about the colors.
For sure.
Isn't the solution after mix inactive after 10 minutes?
Say what? What?
Isn't the solution after mix inactive after 10 minutes?
It is not.
What is B3?
B3 is a bond protector.
What volume developer did you just use?
I use the 50 to 80% by Trionics.
Is this the only lightener you use?
No. I use, sometimes I'll use Wella, sometimes I'll use Joico, sometimes I'll use Scruples like I'm using now. Sometimes I will use, I've used like the Whitmore House. I'm always trying out new things. I tend to just kind of resort back to this one just because I like the way it stays on the surface of the hair. It's not too wet.
Is the B3 like Olaplex?
It is like Olaplex, yep. So the only difference between the B3 and Olaplex is obviously they both have the same goal in mind, is to protect your hair. However, what you're going to get with the B3 is it's going to be, it doesn't dilute the intensity of your developer. So if you are using Olaplex, higher and higher is actually a really good option for you guys, because if you're looking to use a 40, you can use the Trionics and you'll still get like as much lightness as you would with a 40. So B3 doesn't dilute the intensity, and it doesn't take away from the processing of the time as well.
Where do they sell Trionics?
I get mine at Cosmoprof. Cosmoprof. Okay, so you can see here, we got a lot of stuff happening there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take all of these old foil lines out as much as I can, and then we're going to soften those up, and I'm going to balayage this. Put that off to the side. Go. Thanks. Just go.
Thank you.
Did you sneeze?
Yep.
Oh my God, that was the most quiet sneeze I've ever heard in my life. I'm sure they don't mind if you sneezed.
Dawn would like to know, does the lightener, like the one, or like on the first pieces you painted, stop working after a certain amount of time?
I would say if you're doing open air, yes. Open air is going to, you're going to get a lot less lightness there. But if you do want those front pieces to stop processing and you are insulating it, just take the balayage wrap off and just let it dry out, and it will completely dry out and it won't work anymore. So,
how do you know what sections need shadow root?
the ones that have a really harsh demarcation line. So you can see right here, I just wanted to show you guys that it is possible to do the V's with a paintbrush. And what you're going to do is you slowly build your foundation up, and then you keep building on top of it if you want more intensity. For those of you who are just joining me, do keep in mind that the more product you see, the brighter it will be. So the more product you build and the less strands you can see in the interior right there, the brighter the result will be.
What do you consider this whole process?
This is like this is a heavy balayage, and some corrective little pieces. I always have a towel here, and I always wipe my hands in the process just to make sure that I'm not doing any color transfer onto anything.
Can you explain this process?
Right here, what I'm doing? Okay, so what I'm doing right now is she had a color done, and it was, I think they had tried to do like a, Rabina, what do they do? Were they trying to do a balayage?
Yes.
Okay, so they had, but did they use foils?
Yes.
Okay, so they had tried to do like a foil balayage, and what had happened was once that grew out, she had some really harsh lines of demarcation. So I'm taking the Redken Shades EQ and I'm just kind of blurring this transition area and then lightly feathering that in there and then leaving this out. You could balayage it, depending on how much brighter you want it to be, but I'm not going to. I like how that looks. And then you cover those up, and then you won't have those harsh lines of demarcation anymore. All right, so you can see here, like I have a lot of colors going on in here. You see all those? A lot of colors happening here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to make this section a little bit thinner so I can work kind of a little bit more meticulously and get all of those darker pieces out and lighter pieces out. So I'm just being a little bit more particular now because this is actually going to help her in the long run to not have any like corrective stuff happening. Yeah, that's going to look a lot better. I'm happy about that. And then you can see here, we have like a little old highlight in there and not much happening here. So this is going to be where we start working up our lightener.
So would you consider this, you're just using an in-between color to blur the line?
Correct. So I'm using a demi-permanent, and the reason I'm using a demi-permanent is mainly because I want to be able, I always love to shift tone with a demi because unless I'm doing like a root touch-up or I need, you know, to make them lighter, I am going to use a demi because in the event at some point we want to shift her tones differently. We want to make her lighter. We want to make her brighter. I do not have to build through a permanent color because that is always the hardest thing to do. So demi is a lot easier to break through if we ever decide to shift the direction of her color.
What will you use for toning?
That depends on what she lightens to, my expectations for what she'll lighten to, knowing her hair and knowing how dark she is and knowing what volumes we're using, she'll get maybe to an 8, and then on some brighter pieces she'll be a 9. At that point, I will probably use like a Redken Shades maybe. I actually might use the 9V, 9RB, and 9N just to show you guys what that can do. It's a beautiful shade of, it's almost like a sandy champagne color. The RB is a blush, and V in violet and neutral. It's a little bit of an unexpected combination, but I've used it and I love it. Yeah.
How do you avoid brassiness?
You need to make sure that you're, okay, well, that's a loaded question. That is a very loaded question. There are so many factors in why brassiness is occurring. Some things to think about is your saturation, what canvas you're working on. It also depends on, you know, what level of lightness are you looking to achieve on what kind of canvas. You know, she's a natural level 6. Those natural undertones that are in hair are an orange and, well, primarily red and orange. You have to break through orange to get to yellow, which that's not what you're going to be able to achieve on a level 6 with balayage. I mean, you might, but let me know when you do, because I'm excited to see it. And then I'll want to know how you're doing it. But, you know, I think brassiness is also just, it's a common occurrence with hair, especially on darker hair. And a lot of people want ash all the time. And I'm hoping at some point I mean, ash looks good on a lot of people. Like, it looks great on skin tones that are maybe more of like a fair with some pink undertones, people that don't look good with warmth. On olive complexions, warmth is amazing. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. Brassiness actually sometimes can even look good on an olive complexion. I mean, like J-Lo was rocking some, you know, like caramelly, and that undertone is brass. So you just have to learn how to, you know, manipulate the brass to look more caramel, and then you're like in it to win it. All right, I think we're good. I'm gonna do that one little piece over there. Cool, awesome.
Would you like to give your social media again and
sure.
where they can find additional videos?
Absolutely. So I am on social media. I'm Pretty Little Ombre, and I will tell the story again because I love it. Of how I created that name was because of Pretty Little Liars, because I love that show. I don't know if anyone else does but me. There's 7 seasons coming out. I'm so excited. So Pretty Little Ombre is my social media handle, and then I'm also have all of my tutorials live on Behind the Chair University, and I have 4 new tutorials that just went up. I talk about foliage. I have a cool like zigzag foliage technique that that I am doing on there, and that is so fun and easy. And then I have some root smudging ones. I have some multi-dimensional ones, how to low light and highlight together. And I also have a little bit of color melting in there as well that I've launched. And for those of you who have watched my webinar with Behind the Chair, I actually did some still shots of all of those tutorials. So if you guys want the full length ones, they're all up there now. Oh, there's a little puppy we got to blend right there.
Can you again let them know what this technique is called?
So I'm doing a heavy balayage with some corrective pieces. She had an old foil application, and they were very, very heavy lines of demarcation. So I'm going in there and being meticulous and picking those out. And I have my demi-permanent Redken Shades EQ 7NB, and I am going in and I am blurring all of those lines out.
We have a lot of questions about the pricing.
Sure. Okay. Well,
how would you price?
okay. So how would I price? I have a price that's just like a heavy balayage price, and it is very dependent on how much hair I'm doing, how much corrective stuff I'm doing. But prices really are, it's a tricky subject because prices really are, they're different in every area. I said earlier, you can have somebody that charges, $115, $120 for a full head of balayage, and then in other areas, people have maybe a $500 price range for balayage. I do not charge $500, but I know some people who do, and it just really depends on where you live and, how, if you specialize in it and things like that. So I would say, take your full highlight price and add 30% to it, and that should be your starting point for your balayage price. I always include my glosses in there because I feel like a gloss is like I actually include like a bond builder in there. So my price includes a bond builder and a gloss and a blow dry. I don't do anything like a la carte. I have just one solid prices because I don't think it should be an option to not protect your hair to the fullest extent while I have bleach on it. And I also don't think, there's very, very rare people that don't need a gloss for. So it'll either be a deep conditioning treatment or a gloss, and it's usually always a gloss. Hope that answered your question. I feel like I just word vomited all over you.
That's good.
Okay, good.
Can you just talk about the toner one more time, like what you use?
Sure. I think for her, realistic expectations, we'll talk about that just briefly. For her, she's a natural level 6. She's got some old highlights that were, buffering out, and most likely for her, I will get maybe level 8. Maybe on her brighter pieces, I'll get a 9. And then for her, I want to use, it depends on how high she lifts, but what I really want to try to show you guys is one of my favorite my favorite gloss is by Redken Shades. It's 9V, 9N, and 9RB, which is a neutral, a violet, and a rose blush color, and that creates like a really beautiful, like sandy champagne tone, and I really think it looks beautiful on olive complexions, which my beautiful Rubina is. Hey, how you doing over there? You're doing a lot of talking, and you're just staring at my brass bars over there.
What's the difference between regular and heavy?
Regular, well, heavy is, we're trying to get her a lot brighter for the summer, and regular is probably leaving some hair out, maybe not doing as heavy of a heavy application as I'm going in and every single end has been touched. That's a heavy for me. It's a lot of work to do a heavy application, especially with like going in and like having to pick out like old pieces and having to blur out those lines. It's a lot of work, but worth it.
We have some more questions about your brush.
Yes!
Why are you using this, and like what is the difference between this brush and some other brushes?
Okay, so why I love using this brush is mainly because first off, it's the bomb, because it makes my life so much easier with blurring, and it just applies so much easier and more, it's like foolproof. They're natural hair bristles on natural hair, so that in itself, it's like two similar canvases working with each other versus like a synthetic bristle. A lot of them right now are too stiff, and I feel like I don't get as much forgiveness as I would. I've used a normal application brush before, and I feel like for me at least, I'm working twice as hard to get the blur that I want, if that makes sense. I get them at any hardware store, art store. This is the 2-inch one, and you get probably like, I would say maybe like 3 to 5 uses out of it before I toss it. And I buy them in bulk. You can buy, like, at least where I live, like you can get them in a bag of 15, which is awesome.
What are you using for the low blending?
I'm using the Redken Shades EQ 7NB. All right, I'm getting my top, guys. Thanks for sticking, everybody who's stuck around. Okay, so now you can see I've got a whole triangle section here. That's kind of what I'm left with when you take angled pieces all the way up. You see that, everybody? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm probably going to go in and take sections like that horizontally. So I'm going to have maybe 3 sections horizontally on the crown. And the only reason I do this is just because I have more control when I'm painting versus like kind of like coming over on the side and having too thin of sections.
Could you use a sponge to blur as well?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Do you haircut before or after?
Before I do a foundation cut, I think one of the biggest things that people is they don't cut till the very, very end, and then like someone's like, oh my god, by the way, I totally wanted like a bob, and I'm like, fudge, because then you have all this like beautiful painted stuff on the ends, and they're like, oh yeah, I just wanted to cut it all off. So set the goal for the session in the very, very beginning, and create like a foundation cut dry, and then fine tune everything afterwards. So you can
wanted a bob, I didn't tell you.
I love you, Ravina. By the way, I wanted to chop all my hair off today.
We do have some viewers who are wondering about the front and the processing, because it's been quite a while since you started painting.
Yeah.
So can you just talk about
For
the
sure.
processing?
So I used a 40 volume here with B3, and clay-based lighteners they're a lot more gentle and forgiving on the hair than a normal abrasive lightener. So I boosted up to the 50 to 80, right around mid up, and they'll be really nice, but these will boost up really, really quickly, and I'm not too worried about it at all, because I know the integrity of her hair. I know what it can handle. I would never do this on somebody that was maybe like, let's just say like someone who had like fine, thin hair. I would never use 40 volume on them and be like, okay, like go sit for 80 minutes. You just have to be smart about your guest's hair. You know, what have they done prior to this application? What kind of water do they have? You know, there's a lot that you need to set from the beginning. Ooh, look at that. Butter. Sorry. Look at that. So pretty. I haven't seen it on the camera. Oh my God, this is so cool. Look at how white that is. So this is a perfect explanation if you want to come up a little bit further, Ash. So see in this transition area, you can see how like beautiful and seamless that is. So this is exactly what I call the transition area. So she's going to be really blurry and beautiful here. And then once you come up down here, look at how much saturation there is. But then when I lift up, there's nothing. That's balayage. Surface is painted, underneath is naked. Naked, covered.
Clothes?
Nude beach?
No clothes.
Public beach. I'm going to use that one from now on. So I'm going to, my nude beach hair. And then what you do, like once you get to the bottom here, I just stick it there and then get it onto my glove. And just lightly saturate that. Beep. So if you guys want brighter effect on the ends, take thinner sections. The thinner section you have, the more you can saturate. You won't have any strange horizontal lines going across. Hi. Hey, what's up? I'm Facebook Living right now. Oh, you're fine. That's my client, Amber.
How are you? Good.
You brought champagne.
Yeah, I brought
Holla.
even right for you.
How are you?
It's so pretty here.
Thank you. This is Amber's first time in my salon, my new salon. Sorry, guys. I just opened a salon for anyone who's just tuning in. You're in it, guys. You're in it. All right.
To win it.
In it to win it. So you see, I'm going to come up a little bit higher. See how that's separating right there? So that's when you would take your clean fingers right there, and you would just kind of slightly, like slide that in so that everything comes together. Boop. There you go. Okay, so this is... That's my last, oh my gosh, that's my last piece with you guys. Okay, so we're gonna go over a couple of things. First and foremost, thank you Behind the Chair for having me. It's been a pleasure. And also, there's gonna be 2 free tickets given away to people who have been engaging with us today to the BTC on tour with like 1,000 amazing day full of education. So Behind the Chair is in charge of picking those lovely people. Look at my gloves. Amazing. So also for those of you who do not get the free ticket, there is a 25% off code that you can get when you go on there. It's Jamie25, and you guys can get also my free webinar that's attached to that once you purchase today. So this is what Rubina looks like while she's processing. Ain't she lovely? Also, for those of you who haven't checked out Behind the Chair University, you can see all of my tutorials there. I have full-length balayage ones, color melts, root smudges, foliage, and those are all up on Behind the Chair University, so you can see them all there. Any more questions before we sign off? Are we good? Okay. So what we'll do now is we'll let her process for a little bit, and then we are going to show you guys the after product. I'll include all the formulas that I used today, and we will keep you updated. So stay tuned to Behind the Chair and on their Facebook, and we'll show you guys everything afterwards. Thank you guys.